So I'm just playing around with this a little bit. Should be streaming. Should be seeing me on the stream channel or whatever. I moved everything around and got everything all set up so that I was streaming a little bit differently than I had been in the past. But hello, I'm going to be streaming some Landmark later today. Hi, I'm Tannlin. Um, so I just got back from SOE Live a week ago. I would have been there a week ago. I mean, if last Thursday was the first day that was of SOE Live, so a week ago I would have been there. Um, and I had a great time, like a really, really great time. So much so that I wanted to spend more time interacting with gamers, creating more relationships with gamers, and gaming with people that I hadn't gamed with before, and making gaming not so like intimidating. Trying to shift the paradigm away from what we think of when we think of gamers into being more like, hey, these are responsible adults. This is like any other hobby that you may have. You just sit in front of a computer and you play games, or you talk with people, or you watch other people play games and you talk with people that are watching people play games. And that right there is something that is actually kind of key to this whole conversation that I've been having inside my head, because like I used to have season tickets to professional football, and no one thinks twice about that being like a little weird or a little odd. But I mean, you spend half of the game watching other people play football. You're sitting in the stands. You're watching a little bit of the action, but a lot of the reason that you keep going to your season tickets, because they don't move around from year to year, is because you form relationships with the people around you, and so you talk to them about, like, hey, how's your kid doing? How's your sister-in-law that you brought last week doing? She was really cool. Is she coming back? You start to have those type of relationships, and no one thinks it's weird. But all of a sudden, you put it on a computer and make it a computer game, and people are watching you play, and it's weird. Um, I don't buy that at all. I want to change that. I think that gaming should be less of the stigma that it currently is, and I'm kind of looking forward to changing that. So that's what this kind of the stream is. That's the reason I'm going to start doing it. I want to create more of that type of atmosphere. Uh, so who am I, and why am I taking up bandwidth? I'm Tannlin. My wife over there, you hear her laugh. She is that's Everkai, or Kai Lest. She is together we are half of the Evercast podcast show. That is every other Sunday, including this Sunday, and we talk about EverQuest Next, and Landmark. So don't think that this stream is going to replace that. Evercast is always going to be heavily focused on EverQuest Next, to a lesser extent Landmark, to an even lesser extent all other SOE games, and we're not going to preclude ourselves from talking about other games as they relate to gaming and stuff. Um, so that's who I am. So why did I get into gaming? I just want to throw it out there once and for all. The record button is recording so that I can make this once and play it for people if they ask again. So I've always been a gamer. I went through periods of time where I wasn't actively gaming, and I'll explain that later. But I remember being like 10, 11, 12 years old, something like that, and we got our first... well, actually, I was probably even younger than that when we got our first Atari. And then my brother and I, we saved our money up from our newspaper route, and we bought our NES. And we never, I mean, because my family didn't really have a whole lot of extra money, so we never had a collection of games. Like, we had like 3 or 4 games, which was like Mike Tyson's Punch Out, Super Mario Brothers, Duck Hunt, and eventually I got Final Fantasy for Christmas and Legend of Zelda for Christmas. Um, but I would say that after, I kind of I won't even say me. It was my dad. My dad went out, and in the late 80s, early 90s, he got like a Tandy personal computer, which is for a time it was the Radio Shack brand of computers. But he bought a Tandy computer, and they had it set up in their room. It wasn't out in the living room with the TV. It was so like getting to play dad's computer was like this huge thing. And he was playing games like Ultima 3, Ultima 4, Wizardry. He eventually got Civ and Civ 2. And that's like those were like the mid to early 90s, or mid to late. early 90s to mid 90s, late even 80s is when I was playing the most RPGs on a computer without the internet. And so what happened was is that then we got AOL, for the internet, and my dad discovered Dragon Realms, and I discovered other muds. The dial up, you called over to someone's server and you played like the text based game that they were hosting on their server, and this is really really low tech stuff. But he found Dragon Realms, and I was playing around with a lot of other muds, and that really got my dad and I playing, MMOs together, role playing in video games together with other people, which, so that was really unusual at the time, like even more so than it is now, because like if one, you had to have a computer, which no one back then did. Two, you had to have an internet connection, and oh my god, what's the internet? And three, you had to be playing a game with other people. Like, so even if you could find other people that were playing computer games, because Ultima was pretty popular amongst, like the computer game players, like no one was playing online games. Gradually, of course, that took off. But and my dad, he kept playing his text-based games. But eventually, what happened is that I became a teenager. I didn't want to do what my dad was doing. I wanted to be out of the house more and hang out with my friends more. And so that's when, I would say that like 93, 94 is when I got heavily into live action role play and the SCA. And I would say from like 1993 to 1996, I did nothing but live action role play, and play in the SCA like every weekend of every summer for like 3 years straight. And I had a great time doing it. And a lot of the stories that I talk about, like role playing wise, they come from that era. And I met a lot of great people there, and I will talk about them as the subject comes up, because those people in those early live action role play days, the amount of creativity that was inspired by them in that time never wore off, and they are still out there doing great things. And I will plug the things that they are doing at, just organically in the conversation. So what happened in 96 that made me stop live action role playing and gaming altogether is that's the year I graduated from high school and I shipped off to the Marine Corps. Pew! So no computer, no internet, no telephone, no free time, But eventually things steadied in my military career, that I had free time. I had the ability to make friends with people outside in the community, and that's what I did. I started making friends with the role play group that was big in Washington, was also big in Southern California, and that's where I was stationed. And so that was that. But I did not have a gaming computer as we know it today. I think I got an old beat up Dell in like 2001, like right before I got out of the Marine Corps. And the reason I upgraded, and this is like 4 years between the time I got out of the Marine Corps until like I got my first upgrade to my computer, was in 2005. And I wrote notes down because I'm like, when did I do that? And I know, from like my memory is that what happened was in 2005, Civ 4 came out, and I was used to like, oh, I have a computer, I have the game, I install the game on the computer and I play the game. And Civ 4 was the first game that was like, no, your computer needs a video card in order to play this game. And I'm like, video card? I have to go out and get a video card? And so, yeah, I bought my first video card and installed it into an old Dell beat-up personal computer so that I could play Civ 4. And so I was doing that for a little while. I was playing not online games. Occasionally, I was playing Dragon Realms with my parents, but I would never get like seriously back into that game like I used to, because it was scrolling text. And once you make that shift from scrolling text into like a 3D graphic animated game, no matter how like in today's standards, no matter how simple the animations is, you can't go back to text. So in 2007, I was working graveyard shift. I was working my job, I had two other coworkers that were my age. They were also former Marine, or well, one was no, they were both. Hold on, there were four of them. Let me I've got to translate their in-game names to their out-of-game names. There was, um, I'm drawing a huge blank. It started with Elijah. Elijah was the former Marine and he played. Zorlion was former Navy and he played, and then Cathexis was former Navy and he played. And so all four of us were like in our mid to early 20s. We are all working a graveyard shift. We all are working like without family commitments. We're unmarried. We're single guys, and that means that we had like, some similar interests. And so like Vanguard was coming out, and we're like, oh hey, let's all start playing Vanguard. We're gonna play the game when it first launches, and all of us are gonna form a guild together, and we're gonna play all the time together, and it's gonna be awesome. And so that was the first time that I had built. Hey, thank you for following, Hanar. I know that guy. No, okay. So here's a rumor, because Krona says like, here I thought that squids and jarheads hated each other. Okay, it's rumor, okay? But I will say that when you work in the same type of career fields as people in the Navy, the more that you get along with them, and the further away, the less. The more animosity there is, okay? So, like, the Navy has no equivalent to Marine infantry, okay? So the Marine infantry guy, he sees what the Navy guy over there is doing, and he has no comparison to it at all whatsoever. And so it's easy to make fun of people that you don't find yourself, like, they're not like me. They're completely different than me. But in my field, and in the field that, all the people I was working around, we all got along because, well, for one, we're in the same branch. Like, there is no Department of the Marine Corps, it's Department of the Navy. So there's that. Kind of got sidetracked. Oh, so we built our computer, we built our guild. We started playing right at the launch of Vanguard, and that was my true first 3D animated MMO experience. And I played that for about 3 months straight, loved every minute of it. But my friends, the Navy guys and the Marine guys, they're like, Vanguard sucks. We're going to go back to Warcraft. We're going to go back to EverQuest 2. We're going to go back to the original EverQuest. And we're going to... and that was the other thing. That 3 months after Vanguard came out, and I keep hammering this point home, Lord of the Rings Online came out. So the people that wanted something new and didn't want to go back to what they had come from and didn't want to stay in Vanguard, they all jumped ship and went to Lord of the Rings. So in short time, I was playing Vanguard alone, and I played Vanguard alone for 6 months, and that is when I fell in love with non-combat gameplay in the crafting system in Vanguard. And I will talk forever about that because it's the best thing best gaming experience that I've run across. So, but that couldn't last because Vanguard did not have enough. It didn't have enough substance to keep a player playing it for a year straight. It had no content updates forever, and they didn't add the first raid in until like September. So the game came out in like January, early February. So 9 months later, they add in their first raid. It was a great raid, but it was one that was, all the raid guilds had cleared through it in like 2 or 3 months. And then for like years, there was no real content added. I went to start playing Vanguard, or from Vanguard to Warcraft, and I've been pretty much bouncing between all the other MMOs that have been coming out since like 2008 until currently. And that's why I'm looking forward to EverQuest Next so much, is because Vanguard is like your favorite first girlfriend. Like, you love her and you love everything about her. She broke your heart. You've moved on. But there's always that special place in your heart. But I mean, like I told people last year, I went as part of the Vanguard community to SOA Live in 2013, and they promised great things, and then they broke my heart when they couldn't keep the promises they made. But I went to SOA Live in 2013 looking for EverQuest Next and what was coming out next. So that is why I'm excited for EverQuest Next. With that said, I'm going to, hop off the bandwagon or the soapbox and just play a little bit of Landmark.